Hello everyone, with you as always TimFilm, and in this video we're going to take apart the movie Spider-Man No Way Home. It's a very interesting movie and it really impressed me, so enjoy the movie and here we go. Yes, as the title says, this is going to be a spoiler review and not interested in trying to do a spoiler-free review of the one movie that is the most filled with spoilers. I don't even know what I would say, so that is your warning. Alright, let's go. So Spider-Man No Way Home is finally out, and I liked it. I think it is pretty hard not to like it. In fact, is it the best Spider-Man movie ever? No, not to me at least, but I still think this movie is kind of tailored, made to please the most amount of Spider-Man fans. If you love Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he's the best he's ever been, and if you hate him, this movie does a really good job of bringing him back to basics. And yes, in the worst-kept secret of all time, this movie includes heroes and villains from past Spider-Man universes to mixed effect. You have standout stars like Molina and Dafoe who are so good it's crazy. And then you have some actors who clearly didn't want to show up for the movie, and it's a little distracting. Oh, why is Sandman just a vague sand outline? I get that not everyone has to be the best character ever, but it's a little distracting when I can tell that some of these guys aren't really there. Electro is a character that is vastly improved from his original iteration in Amazing Spider-Man 2. But the problem with his character in this movie is that I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't think Jamie Foxx is really that good of an actor, and to be fair, in this movie, he doesn't really have to be. He's kind of the comic relief villain of the group, and honestly, the inclusion of the villains is so ambitious that you probably won't even mind. And when I say that Willem Dafoe is the most menacing and effective villain in a Spider-Man movie to date, I mean it. Movie to date, I mean it. And that's just in this movie. This is the scariest he's ever been. Honestly, I would have liked to see more of him. He steals the show as far as villains go, and I really like that this movie is as dark as it is. I have enjoyed all the movies in the Home series so far, but deep down I have been waiting for the one movie where Tom Holland really gets to suffer. The stakes of his movies have been a natural progression. First he fights a guy who really doesn't want to kill him, but he will if he has to. And then he fights a guy who is more selfish and narcissistic than evil, but he has no evil. Peter has a problem with killing people who get in his way, and now he's fighting a guy who not only wants to kill people, but likes to kill people for fun, and Peter understandably doesn't know what to do with that. Although I really like that Peter's plan in this movie is to rehabilitate the villains. This is the most accurate Spider-Man solution to this kind of problem. And at first, when Aunt May says that they have to help all the villains, I think everyone watching this movie is like, well, that's not going to work. But they somehow make it work, and it's perfect. This is exactly what Peter would do if he thought he had a choice. This is him using great power responsibly. But they make it work somehow, and it's perfect. And that's exactly what Peter would do if he thought there was an option. That's him using great power responsibly. And I also really like how that idea is challenged by Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is here to be the true neutral character who wants to leave the villains to their fate. If they die,
you're a hero.
No, well,
they die. And Peter is the chaotic good optimist who wants to try to save them because he knows it's not impossible. The best thing about being a superhero. Team up is not just when the characters fight each other, it's when their ideals are challenged. These two believe in very different things, and I like seeing that conflict here. And I also like the actual fight that they have. It's a superhero movie tradition to have the characters fight when they're in a team up. And I really like that Peter kind of wins in the comics. Peter has a record of winning fights where he's outnumbered or outgunned just by using his wits and quick thinking. So I really like that. Okay, hold on. Did you remember to subscribe to the channel? Oh, yeah, and like it, and now we can move on. I liked that little brief but exciting tussle they had, but all that's not what people want to talk about. That's not what people want to see. That's not the stuff that made this the most hotly anticipated movie of the year. It's the fact that Andrew Garfield and Toby Maguire have actually returned with their portrayals of Spider-Man. For starters, I think it's safe to say that this movie has the secondary function of redeeming Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, and if you ask me, of the three, he's the most faithful to the comic book Spider-Man. Accurate to the comic book Spider-Man in this movie, he is snarky, overconfident, charming, and with a little bit of sadness deep inside that he is trying to fight past. Also, Andrew's charisma is just off the charts in this movie. In the background of some shots you can see him still using Peter's body language and affectations. He still has the worst Spider-Man movie by far. But he's so good here that I don't really mind, and as such he kind of overshadows Toby just a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that Toby Maguire is bad. By all means, I know you guys think that I hate Toby Maguire and his Spider-Man movies, but I don't. He still perfectly embodies his version of Peter Parker in this movie. He is the soft-spoken but wiser Peter. His performance is straight out of the Raimi trilogy, and it doesn't really need to impress us that much, because we already love him. But I will say that I do like that these guys only show up at the end of the movie. I said this was going to happen months ago, before a trailer was even released, and a lot of people said that I was wrong, and that Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland would be co-leads, and I can't imagine how weird this movie would be. People said I was wrong and that Andrew Garfield and Toby Maguire were going to co-lead with Tom Holland, and I can't imagine how weird this movie is going to be. This is Tom Holland's movie. Let the kid have his damn trilogy. He gets some help, he gets some guidance, but at the end of the day this is very much his story, and I like that even if he gets help from the other Spider-Man guys, he still calls the shots. Men, he's still in charge, because this movie points out that Tom Holland's Peter is the one who's used to working as a team because he's been in the Avengers, so it makes perfect narrative sense why he's the one who's in charge. Yes, there are a lot of Spider-Men in this movie, but at the end of the day, this is Tom Holland's Peter's story. I just think the other Spiddies are included perfectly. They don't overshadow Tom because it's still his big movie, but they still have cute banter. They get a nice scene where they all get to use their brains, and each Peter gets a moment to save the day in some way. The Gwen scene in particular really stands out as one of the best moments in the whole movie. The first half of this movie is basically spoiled by the trailers. As such, I kind of found myself just waiting for the story to happen because you can tell where it's going to go. And yeah, the Ned, Peter, and MJ dynamic is very cute in this one, but I don't know, it felt like in the first half this movie just drags a little bit, but by the end of the movie the pacing has improved a little bit, and it's a lot better than the first half. End of the movie. I was pretty happy with the way the story turned out, and I especially love the ending of this movie. This movie really brings Peter back to his roots. Yes, for years, I've been saying that Uncle Ben obviously has to exist, they just haven't mentioned him yet. But this movie strongly implies that Uncle Ben never existed for this version of Peter, and that this is his origin story for this universe. Part of me thinks it's a little weird to take 3 movies to finally give Spider-Man his full origin story, but at the same time, part of me thinks it's actually kind of interesting and different for this character. By the end of this movie, Peter effectively dies and all memory of Peter Parker is erased from the world, and in doing so, he finally gets to actually become the Peter Parker we're more used to. He lives in a crappy apartment. He has no ties to Stark Industries or the Avengers. After all this time in the MCU, Peter is finally Spider-Man, and he finally has a crappy homemade classic Spider-Man costume. Movie is darker and more miserable, but with an equal amount of optimism and heart. I teared up several times, and even though it's not a perfect movie, it's a very effective story. I still think Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie of all time. I think Spider-Verse is still the best Spider-Man movie of all time, and it's going to take a lot to change that. And yeah, it's basically the Spider-Man fan service movie, but I think that's okay. I look at it the same way I look at Endgame. I don't really look at Endgame as a movie that you sit down and look at with the same lens that you look at other movies. It's a big event. It's meant to be a big event. It's a big event. It's supposed to be fan service. It's supposed to just appeal to your basic animal instincts of hype and excitement. And sometimes it's okay for a movie to make you feel that way every once in a while. Movies like this are more of a spectacle, and this one in particular is an effective spectacle. So like Endgame, I don't really see any reason to give this a score. All I'm going to say is that I liked it. It's a lot of fun, and if you've ever loved a Spider-Man movie at any point in your life, you'll probably like this too. Movie, you will probably like this too. Thank you for watching this episode to the end. Leave your thoughts on the movie in the comments, and see you in the next video.